When we look at somebody's chart, whether or not you are a reflector, you can create your own lunar cycle. What is a lunar cycle anyway? It's the moon moving through your design. Everyone has this. But because we who are solar beings, projectors, manifestors, generators, solar beings, meaning our purpose shines through us because it is broadcast in the nature of our definition. We are the only ones who have the concretization of planetary definition in our natal designs. 98.5% of the population, solar beings. The lunar creatures have their purpose reflect through them. Very different story, very different experience. But still, the moon affects us all. The moon affects the reflectors most because it's the only thing that is consistently, like clockwork, constantly creating the temporary definition in an inconsistent center, right? The center itself is open, but the openness is not a vulnerability in a reflector, not in the same way it is, as an example, on the other extreme, the projector, okay? So when we look at your designs, regardless, whatever type you are, you're going to look at where does the moon hit the planetary activation on the other side of a hanging gate in either an undefined or a defined center, okay? The moon hitting any one of these places where you have hanging gates is going to carry for about half the day a temporary experience of that channel being defined or the entirety of the center being defined. So it's going to take some time. How long does it take? Approximately a month. Okay, the moon is the moment. Remember, the moon is the moment. The moon is going to be a drive, unconscious, if it's in somebody's natal design, or on the conscious side, it can be a drive as well as a mental focus. Think focus or drive. Now, in the transit, as it goes through the wheel, is it going to pull on you or push you? Depends. What is that this what is it that this moon, this lunar influence can do to us? On the body, it's gravity. According to Ra, we wouldn't be able to walk upright if we didn't have the moon pulling on us to stand tall. So your waxing and waning of this moodiness, moon, it is going to bring exaltations or detriments to specific areas of your chart, as I have asked you last week to go and check. Do you have any places in you where the moon in particular accents something inside of your natal design? Okay, inside of your natal design, does it influence you? You should be able to hear keynotes of the moon in that exaltation or in that detriment. Okay, so we're going to start at the starting point where conscious personality moon is in 61. So that's the natal imprint birth. However, if we move backwards, we will see where the moon was 88 degrees of the sun's movement before you were born. And for the reflector, what I have heard from reflectors is that the unconscious design natal imprint is a very strong drive, a force, pull, push. Okay, so that's that body's recognition, that being that told me that it was so. And remember, the body is the life, but it's unconscious to the personality. So it may take some time for you to align, regardless of whether you're a lunar type or a solar type. It'll take some time for you to recognize what it feels like inside of you for the unconscious design to be embodied and true. It takes time. No way getting around that. It takes time. Okay, and everybody has their own time process. It's not a race. Guess what's at the end? You die. It's not a race, okay? And it's not a race to decondition either. It's your process. It takes its time. Okay, so if we take a look, and we'll just start it at the recognition of what is the conscious personality's way, okay, of its orientation to the moment or the moon of the day. We are only going to look at how moon creates a channel first. And the reason for that is it's the most noticeable. The most noticeable. Why is it the most noticeable? Because your mind gets conditioned on the other side of the channel, and it may not be as noticeable when it's in a place that creates a defined channel where you already have definition in the centers. Okay, so I'm going to repeat it again in a different way, as in the other side of the coin. It's going to be more noticeable when the moon comes in and creates a channel that normally doesn't connect to defined centers. So down here as an example, the 13 is going to create an illusion of definition, a temporary experience where Laveena might be in the mood to share what she remembers as a witness, the prodigal. That's the conditioning. But it's not as apparent or recognizable or powerful necessarily because there's already definition going on here. Okay, there's already definition within the center. So it's not as a big of a deal, you might say. Okay, but obviously over here it'd be a really big deal. So your orientation to your own lunar process, whatever time that it takes for you to watch the moon, remember our learning process, if it's correct for us to follow that lunar process, our learning process is going to teach us so much about the moon's influence on us. She's not just this cold-hearted bitch in the sky. She's actually, even though the cold light of the moon can be interpreted as far and distant, have you ever felt the moon's compassion, the wateriness, the emotionality of the moon? If you've ever had a personal connective field with the moon can be nourishing, the moon can be caring, the moon can be waxing and waning, so it can be off and on. If you got somebody who's very much about individuality, either in their experiential reality of what it is that they are, or maybe they have aspects that bring in strong pulse-like orientations. The moon itself is wavering. She waxes and wanes. She may not have the same face when she's in a gate because she'll look different in the sky, because the moon is not a circular orbit. It's elliptical, and the Earth is also moving around the sun. So we get a different face in the sky. If you've ever looked up at the moon and you've seen the big, bright strawberry moon, have you ever seen a strawberry moon? Like, wow, that's huge. And ooh, it's kind of pink. That's really interesting. It has a very different flavor than when you look up in the moon and it's this tiny dark sliver. She's showing you her dark face. Now, the orientation to what one's lunar principle is has to do consciously with the phase of the moon that one was born in, oriented to. This particular moon happens to be moving towards the full moon. So it's at the dark side, okay? The dark side, the dark moon. Rather than if you are born with this big, bright full moon, very different story. So archetypally speaking, is your conscious reflected? I'm speaking to the consciousness now. The mental consciousness. Is your consciousness awareness, reflective light of the moon, reflected light of the moon going to be big and bright, or is it going to be dark as night? Remember that the moon is reflecting the sun, literally. So where is the sun in this person's reality? Ah, it's over here. Sun is over here, okay? So it's reflecting the light of the sun, and the moon was dark that night, okay? It was dark that night, not super bright. So this leads to, it affects the conscious personality, this who is here to be a witness. Now, the moon itself is an internal construct of the mind. Internal, what one's mind is like inside on the conscious personality. Remember, I'm speaking to the consciousness personality right here and now. Okay, your consciousness, your internal reality, your mental focus or mental drive, the moon, which waxes and wanes, which shows its face in different light, in different awarenesses. It's not just what line quality you have it imprinted in whatever gate. It's also what face were you lit up by when you were born, either under a dark sky or a bright sky, doesn't matter. There is a different energy to the frequency, the chemistry of a being. Okay? Now, if we go back to the 88 degrees again, sun's movement before you were born. What was the moon doing here? It's physical genetic imprinting. You were still inside of your mother's womb. You were still inside, all nice and cozy. Maybe you felt safe, maybe you didn't. But this imprint, genetically speaking, what the unconscious genetic imprint of the internal moon, it brings gravity. Okay, I want you to remember this term, gravity. The moon, the physical moon on the body side, the unconscious drive, it brings gravity. People that come into your life can pull or push. They can bring you gravity. They can bring weight. They can change your solidity. They can even change your shape. That's an advanced area of the knowledge. I want to infect you with the magic of what it is to be you. And in relational dynamic with other people too, because it's not like they're intentionally doing it to you. It's just the nature of the physical reality that we are embodied in, that we feel pulled to or drawn to or pushed by the inherent natal capability of being one's own being, this finite, it seems, experience of this physical reality, but in relational context to life. Who's going to bring that solidity or gravity? Hey, gravity means like the thing that keeps you anchored here in this life, driven by. You add this one, okay, the creative. Whereas over here, the mind is going into the mystery. So where Laveena's moon was when she was born happens to be in a line quality that speaks to objectivity, as in clarity of creative self-expression. That's what it teaches. Now, because it's in relational context to Earth and Jupiter, there is going to be a fixedness to the construct, as in the body. This body, this structure of the physical body graph, once you are born, the physical body graph, it never changes as far as the orientation of what's eternal about this physical form. I keep saying that today. It's quite interesting. Okay, this physical form. Okay, this physical form, even though the timeline of linearity makes us believe there is a beginning, middle, and end, and then it's over and done. In truth, what this experience is of the eternal now is that the now informs the past, which affects the future. The now informs the past, which affects the future. So all we have really access to is here and now. And what is the moon but a moment? And that shifting face of the moon as it lights up the dark of the sky or is completely hiding her face. That lunar moment has a frequency, it has a chemistry, it has an experiential quality that you can go outside and step into the light and bathe yourself in that bright moon. Do you feel how different it is to be outside in the dark moon? Hopefully you've gotten my recognition. Moon is so special and important. It is the thing that makes life possible on this planet. Okay, it's not second shift or second. Everything is important, but it's really important because it creates your psychology. It creates your physicality. Okay, very important. It's right up there, right? Sun, Earth, Moon, and then nodes. In some software, it's Sun, Earth, nodes, and then Moon. Okay, so very important. Now, if we were to go around this mandala wheel, just start and take a look, take a gander at how this experiential quality is going to show up. Then we can look at the lines in context with the other side of the channel too. What is the moon doing either to the gate it's in, or how is it pulling or pushing on the other side of the channel to create the channel construct? I don't know, Laveena, can you tell me? Yeah, go look and see if you have any exalted or detriments. The moon affects us a lot. I haven't counted it, but I imagine it's quite a lot because I remember looking through it and going, whoa, this is a lot. Okay, the moon affects us a lot, as in all of the line qualities, okay, in our contextual reality. So what this is bringing then is Laveena will tell stories and secrets at this time. And oops, was it correct or aligned? We shall see. So in the process of the configuration of the information you're attempting to convey to yourself, to your clients, first step first is experience it. Go through it with awareness. Go through it with awareness and see what's true as far as the authentic nature of you. And same thing too, we just watch as that moon floats on through. Now here again, I'm only to make it very simple and easy and not overwhelm you. I am not talking about what the moon does within any of the channel constructs, because obviously the moon can pull or push on anything, on anything. This particular mandala wheel is only showing us where there's a hanging activation and moon comes in and what the channel is. But you can go as deep as you'd like to. Here we have the awareness design of a thinker. So instead of the prodigal, the next channel that the moon creates in this person's monthly cycle is now awareness design of a thinker. Half a day, return, 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 return. Okay. Mind is pulling, pushing, influencing, illuminating, lighting the way, or darkening, bringing gravity. Remember what it does. It reflects light. Moon, mind, my mind keeps saying manas because that's Vedic. The moon is the mind. It is part of the mind, the internal mind, the internal construct of this awareness principle of how we are going to be, in this context, aware. And what is the moon doing? Rather than selling secrets or saying secrets, thank you, moon, reflecting on those secrets, because secrets is the 13. Now we have this process of the recognition, projected channel after all, that is spontaneous in its awareness, returning back in order to process the mysteries, thinking, thinking, thinking. Okay, so it's looping cycle rather than cyclical in its awareness of the past, sharing. Now we have knowing or not. We have this returning and this influence mentally, because it wants to rationalize everything, this mind, taking in that moon and going, ooh, how nice. And then what are we doing? We are maybe certain about things driving you crazy. Well, yeah, lunar principle. What do we say about the full moon? Lunatic, right? Because it can drive some people crazy. Where is it going to drive people crazy? That looping thought pattern over and over that won't let you alone. And mental pressure being captured by the lunar principle, because the moon is standing there in that doorway, or I should say, not standing because it's moving, everything in movement, everything vibrating. The moon holding that doorway open, creating space for the genetic imprint, because the frequency field moving through the moon into your genes, and then right back on out. Okay, taking a little bit of you with it, your awareness, design of a thinker. My mind is saying the eternal nature of you. This is how it is true, that the information comes through you and moves beyond, taking a little bit of you out there too. There's a little bit of me in you, and there's all of you, a little bit of all of you in me. This cosmic soup of the neutrino ocean, this reality that we are bathed in. This is the experiential quality of what it is to be embodied in this form now. We're just not aware of it. We're not aware of it most of the time. But once in a while, you can hear the keynotes. You can feel it through your body. You can recognize it if it's part of your process to be aware of it. How does it feel when that light of the moon comes through? That moodiness, that off and on. Now, if I take that context of moon, over here, this was Saturn, very different, okay? Energetically, rather than just looking at line quality, if that's too much, and you're like, that's really esoteric, I can't get to line qualities yet, Laveena. I don't know, I don't get it. I want you to think about this from anthropomorphization. Such a big freaking word, anthropomorphizing. What does that mean? It means projecting human-like qualities on an object that is obviously not human, the moon. This is Laveena's moon, okay? This is her mental focus, 61.3 is about interdependence. In order to establish truth, 61, inner truth, we have to develop interrelational skills, says the 3. The moon is always like, what's it like for you? First time I ever was aware of it, what's it like for you? What is your experience? That's true. Internal mental awareness. This is always how the mind is processing internally in order to find awareness. So we've got 2 moons meeting in a channel. It's in a pulse of off and on. We've got an instability of the undefined center, head center, and the totally open ajna. Those are unstable anyway, because contextually speaking, they're not consistently defined. This is more stable down here, right? Because it's defined. So it's part of this person's broadcasting of the nature. So the moon bringing this in doesn't destabilize the identity of this human being. Moon coming in over here, different story. Oh, awareness, design of a thinker. Now we're thinking, now we're processing, now we're rationalizing, we're becoming aware, and then it's gone. And where did that moodiness, melancholy go? Oh, are we going to fear, like take on that fear and identify, says the mind? 624 is the rationalization of inner truth. It's the fear of ignorance. So are we going to take on mind? Okay, conscious thinking mind, conditioned adaptive strategy. I'm afraid of not knowing or looking ignorant. So I'm going to take that on, that conditioning, and I'm going to amplify and distort it, as in I'm going to try to hold on to it. This is what the not self wants to do in openness. The identification with the ego I wants to hold on to things. Whereas when you're open, flow like water, my friend. Okay, you don't have to hold on to it. It comes and goes, off and on, there and gone. Individuality is like that. Okay, so what is it going to be like? Empowering or not? It'll come and go. It'll wax and wane, there and off again. Okay, so this is more destabilizing when the moon moves through a channel that is not connected to definition. Okay, it is temporary illusion of definition. This is definition. This is temporary conditioning from transiting bodies. Now, we're talking about moon as it moves around the wheel as part of your process of investigation if it's right for you. If you need to do this or want to do this or desire to do this or want to go in, other people who may not be like, I don't want to do all that work. I'm just planting seeds of awareness. You may not have to do all that work, okay? Maybe now is not the time. So don't feel like you're going to miss out on anything if you don't put in the effort and try. Some people are strategic, they'll do. Some people respond. What to do? You don't? No worries. Okay. I'm attempting to talk enough to get a frequency field of awareness into you to demonstrate how this might work for you through my personal example of just seeing what is coming out. Now, right next door, you see, here's the moon in Laveena's vulnerability. Vulnerability, openness. Gate 2. The moon coming into this being's design. Now we have the beat, design of being a keeper of the keys. And this does not make Laveena's design generative. The conditioning of the moon, pulling or pushing, might lead this one to spontaneously go in a direction that may not be just so, as in clear. But it is part of the frequency field of what we're receiving. The receptive, gate 2. Receptive, yeah, receptive. Think form principle. This is the beginning of the quarter of civilization, purpose fulfilled through form. So it brings the civilizing effect of communication and direction on our forms, okay? On our forms. So how is it that that moon is pulling or pushing or drawing or pulsing in this case? Pulsing, again, another pulse. Pulse of off and on, there and gone. The moon with its wishy-washiness, waveringness, this bright light or dark face. Is it going to pull you in a direction that's empowering, or is it going to push you in a direction that is disempowering? If you believe the mind story, it might lead you to spontaneously respond to a direction that is not healthy. And what to do? Wait for your authority, yeah? To connect you with you, as in your own internal process. That is true. Not believing the mind story, the ego I that lies inside. Now, at this juncture, I've been mostly speaking to the nature of a solar being. That's what we're looking at, a solar being. Now, I want to preface this with, let's remember this is for reflectors, especially to not just you who are solar, but reflectors. And the light of the moon, the face of the moon, the way that it moves throughout the entire mandala wheel and connects you with the greater you, the eternal moon principle that is pinging the keynotes inside of your design, that's creating the channel that is part of your aligned movement. We're all in movement. If we were not, we'd be stagnant and stall and stuck and die. Okay, so movement of the moon within your genetic potential is part of your personal empowerment as a reflector. The lunar cycle is you, like the beautiful changing face of the moon. You ever see those pictures where you watch the moon move through the sky? Yeah, where they show how bright and changes and then darkens the light. That moon is part of the eternal nature of what this concretized and formed being is experiencing, like clockwork, every month. In the cycle, 14 cycles in a year, approximately. Remember the elliptical nature? Sometimes that moon hangs out a little bit longer. The moon likes certain places in the wheel because it's elliptical, right? So it's going to hang out in specific places. I really want to find out where that is. As far as like, where is it a little bit further? Where, or not further, it would be wider, because the narrow part is where it would be shorter. Yeah. Okay. So when we take a look at the construct, I'm going to go quicker now. Alex, thank you for sharing. Live out the question rather than obsessing oneself with a certain answer. Yeah, if that was coming from up here, down here, not answer, rationalization, because to be technically correct, answer, rationalization. Okay, answer is 4. Answers are logical. Answers are youthful folly. Depends on the question. You're welcome. My pleasure. Thank you for thanking me. This is my love of humanity as far as like this connective field with you. I feel so seen. Talent. When you have some talent, the moon comes in, says, here, over here, you know, recognition, excitement, enthusiasm. Laveena's moon. Oh, so happy to be seen, you know, awareness principle, the moon. Moon consciously brings internal awareness. Moon unconsciously brings drive. Okay, so I love the moon. When you look up at the moon and you see its light, you know, its reflection in that dark night. I was born in the night. And what I can recognize is that the body, which is the life, right-facing variable arrow, only one I have, it's more attuned to dark rather than light, okay? So a left-facing variable brain-body system is attuned to the daylight, bright light, directness. The sun, earth on the design side, this body, when it's aligned, so much more comfortable when I close my eyes, go inside, okay? So the attunement, the receptive field, because that's the receptivity, and to go into the feeling cognition, the sensitivity. What we can see when we see these things as vulnerability to the not self, if it's the transit, what we can see is this is going to be, oh, spontaneous recognition. Let's do it. You know, let's just go for it or talk about it because we might not have the energy to do it. There's no energy there by the moon by itself. Now, we might have other planets coming in, but we're just focusing, isolating on the lunar cycle because you all have one and you can go around and look at it. What does the moon do to you constantly? And is it true? What is your process? Ra said, if you wanted to learn human design, transits were the best way. It's free. It's a constant. You don't need anybody outside of you, maybe to explain how it works, but what it's like for you. You don't need anybody outside of you to tell you what it's like for you because you get your own personal experience. When you look at how any of these planets, but particularly since the moon moves so quickly, you'll get it through all of your gates, you know? You'll get it through all of these places and spaces. That's the wavelength talent. Next one, like clockwork, Laveena gets money, honey. Okay, so half the day, orientation towards channel of money, design of a materialist. That's this pattern, this orientation. The definition, temporarily, okay? The illusion of definition, the conditioning, better word, the conditioning of the ego, the heart center, because of the other side of the channel getting lit up by the draw. Pull to spend money, push to spend money, yeah, to own things, beautiful things, Venus and Moon. Oh, how nice. Okay, so we have money. And then what we have? Well, the channel of rhythm, design of being in the flow, being pulled to this extreme or that extreme. Yeah, to be in flow state. Oh, isn't it so great? I love flow state. Time goes on and I could be just completely immersed in something. And all of a sudden, where'd the day go? Because I was in flow state, don't you know? Okay, next. Look at that. Determination, focus, concentration. Can Laveena sit still? Only if I have somebody else there. It's very hard to sit still otherwise. I'm up, I'm going, doing this, doing that. Active mountain environment, you know? If there is something that is pulling or pushing me, and if the moon is here, it's pulling me to sit still. Ooh, meditate. Oh, isn't that great? I love meditation. I love that presence of being here now. That's what the moon does, hey? It's here now. It's not yesterday or tomorrow. It's moon is the moment. It's here now, the eternal now, the never-ending now. In this context, it's going towards the future. Determination, a design of concentration, the conditioning of the moon. See how easy it is? You don't have to make this stuff up. You just go read the channel name, a design of. And then what is the moon doing? Are we in the mood? Think moon, mood, okay? The mind is moody. It's wishy-washy, you know? It vacillates like the moon. It's not concretized and stuck or fixed. Why? Because the mind is built on the openness, all of the openness, all of it. The not self mind is contaminated by all of the openness. That's why we can't trust it to make decisions. Experiment, try it and see. Okay. And then from that format of future, we look the next channel that we see, past. The cyclical process of the experiential maturation. So here the moon's bringing, let's get something started. This internal focus to push you or pull you to start something. Is it true? If it's spontaneous and it's not a process of your authoritative principle, be careful. I would be careful in that. Be aware. Now again, solar principle. The moon in that being of the reflected light of this reflective nature of the lunar principle. Very different. It's their truth, but their truth is unpacked over the moon, the month, the lunar month, okay? Not in the moment. It's like you meet a reflector once. You didn't get that reflector, not truly. You gotta experience them over a month to really taste or process or know at least 1 month, you know, day to day as the experiential process waxes and wanes. They're going to be different, like different phases of the moon, different, not just with different people, but during different times of the month. That's a very different cyclical process if they have activations within it, that channel. Then we have the alpha that can stand, you know, and say, this is the way that we are going, or we should go, or this is the way. If you elect me, don't you know that I'll lead, influence the moon. Okay, the channel of the alpha, design of leadership for good or bad, bad, good. Who knows? Good news, bad news, who knows? The moon, maybe, does it know? We'll see. Try it and see. Experience this quality. Feel it resonate in your body. See what it does to your chemistry. I'll tell you a little story if you haven't heard it before. Ra thought he was crazy. He took all of his notes, threw it in a guitar, burned it. Okay? All of his notes, burned it. And yet, when he watched the moon, he felt the energies of the planets. They were like voices inside that spoke to him, each of the planets. And when he watched that moon go around his own natal design, and he saw in his undefined solar plexus how the moon would hit up in gate 19 and affect him to turn him into moodiness, or it could affect him in 30 because he had the 41, or 37 because he had the 40, or 22 because he had the 12. All of those as opportunities to learn from the moon. How does the moon affect you? Turn you into a blubbering mess. Can you experience it for yourself? Yes, you can. Quite easily if you just observe it with awareness. And that's what we're doing. As an analyst, you are taking all of your experiential process of being aware of what it's like to be beyond compare, because you're watching this movie, your movie, and the movie of the life, the experiential process of seeing other people come to you with their lives. I'm seeing this, I'm experiencing this. What's it like for you? Oh, let's talk about it. And oh, isn't that fun? Seeing the secret key codes, the games that we play of being a leader, an alpha, or not, for good or bad. So discovery, don't you know? Different story, experiential, cyclical process where we are succeeding where others fail, or failing where others succeed. Oh, my moon. It sucks to be embodied, or not. It's great to be embodied. Oh my God, it feels really good in this body. Moody, waxing and waning, there and off again. But this one's cyclical in its pattern and its experiential process. When the body gets super excited, Laveena gets embarrassed, as in this mind goes, what the? Apologize for that. Get yourself together, woman. Be serious. Sorry, can't do it. Oh, well. Okay, so sometimes it helps if we allow this feeling of the moon to emote. Think moon, emote, kind of like emotion. And now you've got me feeling emotion stuck in my head. Oops. Okay, I'm so glad. God, the energy being in this body, it's kind of freaky deaky. It's weird. It's wacky. It's wonderful. And it can also be bitchy too. Because look, 18, that moon. Ooh, I judge you because X, Y, and Z. Says the moon here. Authority. Yeah, challenging the authority. Or inside, something wrong with me. Conditioning, thinking that, I have to be better or whatever. So 18 is correction. What has been spoiled? The awareness. So the moon coming in, giving this on sensation of awareness. Can we let go and just allow it to flow through rather than identifying with the moon as what is true in a solar being? Because it's transitory. It's the movement of the moment. But a reflector, this is you, like the many-facing changes of the moon, faces, places, and spaces. What about the channel of preservation, a design of custodianship? Ooh, responsibility. Laveena's biggest bugaboo, because she's got a dream rave, nighttime, dream rave, nighttime, ghost gate. So the mind thinking that one has to be responsible or not, creating the illusion of the channel of preservation, a design of custodianship. So now the ability to respond, to spontaneously recognize, okay, what's correct for the tribal principle. Spontaneously, is it really right for me? No, go back to the authority. See how easy it is to get pulled out of one's authoritative principle because of how many times, and we're just talking about the moon, my friends. We're talking about one planetary body. We're not talking about all of the movements constantly of all of those planets hitting up stuff in you. So I remember Genoa Bliven, one of the things he wrote to me when I started to help people with analysis work as a PTL4 teacher, just a quick, simple, he said something like, I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember exactly. I just got the impetus of the gist of this. And it is the fact that we are constantly conditioning. Same thing Ross said, but in different ways. Obviously, you take it in at different points and it just lands. It hits you inside. Oh, It hits you. It truly does. The recognition of how much we are conditioned, not that it's bad or wrong, simply that it is. It is. And so what's not self? In the solar type here, this is not self, because there is not a planet there. In relational context to the areas of this being's genetic imprint, okay? Not self, simple, not so easy to remember, but I want you to. Oh, do I want you to? So that you remember what is true, what's unique to you, authentic to you, aligned for you. The only place where there is utter uniqueness for a solar type, the channel. Yes, this is concretized, but it's not necessarily fixed in a channel. The moment you have channel definition, very, very fixed. That's why reflectors are so different, okay? If we have a relational dynamic between two or more, both of my channels have 3 planets, okay? Look down at your chart, wherever you have planets in the relational dynamic. Ooh, we're playing, how nice. That's a fixed relational dynamic that's not going away, ever. In this life, this concretized form principle. This is the nature of the essence of the uniqueness. Now, in the concretized, either mind game, psychological, or form game, physiological principle. When we have areas that are open, we have openness to wisdom. Wisdom about the conditioning of what happens, not just with moon, but wisdom about all the planetary activations that could come through. So in openness, yes, it's a vulnerable place or state of being, but can we be honest? Can we be authentic? Can we be true? Can we align to what's right for you? Can we? We are we. Did you know that? We are we. Oh, relax, Laveena, don't go into sobbing. We are we, you and I. It's an illusion of separation from the totality of existence. In this form differentiation, in this experiential process, can we have breakthrough? Once in a while, Laveena has genius to freak breakthrough insights. Are they true? Are they right? Are they real? Or is it something to let go of? That was interesting, wonderful. Wisdom, potential. Oh, that was that person's breakthrough. Or that was the moon. The moon, wax and wane, there and off again. And here we have fear of rejection. Ooh, one's insights being way too weird to be able to explain. I don't know how to explain that. I'm gonna shut up. Reason why Laveena quit pot. So paranoid, really could not articulate, felt really uncomfortable trying to figure out what the heck was going on. Once upon a time, I liked that feeling. Wait, what? I wanted that to be on my gravestone. Wait, what? What? Nah, I like knowing now. I like that feeling of being on. And it's okay if things vacillate, because they do always. In the openness, there isn't anything that's absolutely crystallized and true. In the definition, you find what is true. Yeah, are we going to be a freak? Insist or desist or not? Can we transmit? Surrender, design of a transmitter. Laveena was told when she got the job at Jovian in 2014, too bad you're not a transmitter. That's the one who's going to be really successful in getting this information out into the world. Oh, and Laveena in her totally open ajna, feeling really insecure about what she knew, going, oh, maybe I'm not built for this job, taking on the other person's outer authority, when it wasn't necessarily truth. Truth is inside of you. Truth is a lived, breathed experience, unpacked over the lifetime. Okay? So now when we come to this nature of the last principle of this person's experiential process, channel of struggle, a design of stubbornness. Stubborn. You ever been accused of being stubborn? Laveena has. If I were to go track it, I would imagine it was especially true when Pluto was transiting through there, 38, or any one of those planets, and of course the moon. When you get this for yourself, this experiential process of awareness, you will never again look at yourself and experience of yourself, of being yourself in the same way. Very, very different. Ooh, the last one I must have deleted it accidentally. Channel of transformation. A design of being driven. The moon coming into 54.4, enlightenment and darkenment, the most mystical activation in the entire stream of capitalism. It is a mystical line, enlightenment and darkenment, the alpha and the omega. This experiential process, not just that 4, but what about the 6? Laveena's a 32-6 when the resonance principle comes in. What about when 54 is in 3? And oh, we have this harmonic reality. Are we going to be driven spontaneously to have transformation? Is it right? Is it true? Is it real? Is it authentic? Only you, in your authoritative process too, being your own authority, will recognize and know what is true. Okay, we are complete with the song and dance, wacky, silly, wonderful, weird